announced, and Samsung will be hosting their Unpacked 2014 Episode 2 event on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014 in Berlin, Germany, Beijing, and New York simultaneously. And if you're not part of the press, you can watch the live broadcast at the following address on your screen, so for sure mark those calendars. But what indications of the Note 4 being announced? Well, it's the tagline in Samsung's official illustration stating "Note the date." But is it coincidental? I don't think so, as the illustrated picture is the S Pen's menu on previous Note products released in the past. So what I'd like to do is bring you everything that I personally know of so far on the Note 4 and provide you some insight before the potential announcement in less than a month. We'll stay away from rumors as much as I can and not hype this launch, but provide what's been leaked, or at least what's most likely to be available. I'm Jimmy with Jim's Review Room. Welcome to another video. The Note phones from Samsung has always been their best of the best, top-of-the-line smartphones to come from the factory, especially the Note 3 offering an amazing and contrasting 5.7-inch screen. It featured a 1080 display, an amazing camera, and all the bells and whistles of an ultra-high-end smartphone. You can even record 4K content, which was amazingly sharp, all from a device that fits in one hand. But the Note 3 and the latest Galaxy S5 had its own fair share of criticism, maybe due to being overhyped, or maybe we as consumers were expecting too much, specifically during the launch of the S5. So we're at the time expecting a metal body construction, 64-bit processing, more RAM, etc, etc. And probably at that time it was meant to be released, but again Samsung decided not to. They're still great phones nonetheless, but Samsung has lost some of its luster per its second quarter earning reports. But to dive in a little bit deeper, and from my research, Samsung is losing in its low-level to mid-tier handhelds. And Samsung did admit they spent more on marketing than usual to compete, and they are getting rid of their old inventory to make room for new ones this upcoming fall. Either case, although Samsung is having its worst performance in 2 years, as confirmed by these reports, Samsung is still a giant wrecking ball, and no question one of the global leaders, and more importantly, market influencers. And that's the hope of the Note 4, that there's enough change or innovation once again to shake the industry and give some life back to smartphones and tablets, you can say, in general. Now, starting off with the screen, reports are speculating the same 5.7-inch size is coming back, but this time with a resolution of 2560 by 1440, translating to still a 16:9 aspect ratio and a crazy 515 pixels per inch. Now, the Apple Find 7 and LG G3 are the only other phones at the moment to feature the same resolution. Now, with that being said, reading Engadget.com, TechRadar, and Android Central states with the additional pixels, it's no question that it's very sharp, but you really have to pay attention, or put a QHD screen side by side with a 1080 resolution display to really notice. And not to mention, more pixels equals faster battery drain, so we'll see how Samsung will address this. But what's more unique, per news agency Routers.com, Samsung's Senior Vice President of Product Strategy mentions the Note will be a new form factor. Now, nothing more has been leaked or discussed on that aspect, but speculation leads to a possible curved screen as shown on one of Samsung's conferences in the past, showcasing OLEDs and prototype display technologies. So the form factor change is confirmed, but only time will tell if there is a change to the screen at all and what kind of change we're looking at. And speaking of the physical form factor, I think we're still seeking a bit more of a premium material to be used, rather than the similar plastics on the S4, S5, and Galaxy tablets. Although the plastic does work and it doesn't bother me too much personally, but once handling say a HTC M8 or playing around with the G3, going back to plastic does feel a bit different. And I'm just saying, I'm paying a premium price, it'd be nice to get a premium feel as well. Now moving to another big area, the arms race. The SoC or processor that's possible in the new Note 4 showed up around June 23rd in the benchmark program Antutu. Now, two variants showed up. One is from Qualcomm, the newest quad-core Snapdragon 805 processor, and the other is Samsung's newest 8-core Exynos 5433. Now, specs are on your screen, and when comparing these pre-release numbers, the 805 shows a 15% performance boost over the current Note 3, which uses the Snapdragon 801. And come to think of it, it's possible the newest chip, of course, will handle the higher resolution, but more importantly, battery management will be better, much better that is, for the additional pixels on screen. At least here's hoping. hoping. And per Qualcomm's website, the graphics portion of the Snapdragon processor called the Adreno 420 GPU is 40% better in performance compared to the predecessor, the Adreno 330, found again in last year's Note 3. Now, more than likely, the Snapdragon will be here in the US, but what I'm totally bummed out about is the Exynos will more than likely be available internationally. And per those leaked benchmarks, the Exynos is even more powerful than the 805 and just a hair under the almighty K1 processor from Nvidia, which I just reviewed about a week ago. And looking at the charts and numbers, the Exynos does much better in CPU performance versus the Snapdragon 805. So here's hoping the lag and stutters are going away. But one last tidbit, the Exynos is a 64-bit architecture, catching up to Apple you can say in that aspect. But per TechRadar, one of the many websites who reported on the leaked benchmarks, indicated the 8-core Exynos processor was not tested in its 64-bit environment. The processor wasn't even fully utilized. And per Android Authority, they speculated the processor was only running at 1.3 GHz. And if that's all accurate, just imagine when this processor is really tested at its full offering. So we'll just have to wait and see in what comes about here in the States and what comes about, across the pond, you can say. And other notable upgrades that are strongly suggested is a 16-megapixel camera, which is the same resolution as the S5, but people are suspecting with optical image stabilization, just to help out with those shaky hands and blurred photos. And I'm sure the S5 heart rate reader and fingerprint scanners are coming to the Note 4 as well, which is nice for them to include, but I personally would rather see a focus on better battery life or a more refined TouchWiz interface, refined and being less intrusive towards performance. That'd be phenomenal. So everything else that I want to mention is more speculation and rumors, like articles stating there's possibly announced. And Samsung will be hosting their Unpacked 2014 Episode 2 event on Wednesday, September 3rd, 2014 in Berlin, Germany, Beijing, and New York simultaneously. And if you're not part of the press, you can watch the live broadcast at the following address on your screen, so for sure mark those calendars. But what indications of the Note 4 being announced? Well, it's the tagline in Samsung's official illustration stating "Note the date." But is it coincidental? I don't think so, as the illustrated picture is the S Pen's menu on previous Note products released in the past. So what I'd like to do is bring you everything that I personally know of so far on the Note 4 and provide you some insight before the potential announcement in less than a month. We'll stay away from rumors as much as I can and not hype this launch, but provide what's been leaked, or at least what's most likely to be available. I'm Jimmy with Jim's Review Room. Welcome to another video. The Note phones from Samsung has always been their best